Oh yeah, baby. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my corner. Happy holidays. I'm diverting from films today. I wanted to talk about my special Christmas present that I got this year, but I almost didn't get it. I got to see Phantom of the Opera on Broadway again. I have seen this show so many times. I'm addicted to this show. I don't know why. That's partly why I'm making the video. I'm trying to dissect the why. Omicron is being a little bitch, of course, and closing shows left and right. So I almost didn't tell anybody that we were doing this. As we got closer and closer to when Phantom was reopening on Broadway back in October, we got very close to the opening date, and I was just like, so obviously had to go see it. And I looked at tickets just for fun. They're selling tickets for $29. I mean, maybe that's a COVID special. I don't know. I was like, $29 for a Broadway show? Broadway shows are like north of $200 last time I looked, which it's been a while because I try not to look because it makes me sad. So in a way, the pandemic has helped me because it's enabled me to go as I get my finances back in order from all the time off thanks to COVID. So I wanted to talk about this production first. So again, it's been open for 2 months, back open for 2 months now on Broadway. Phantom still rules. It's been on Broadway, let's see, in January, it should be 34 years, if I'm counting correctly. It's the longest running show on Broadway currently. It's an import from England. In case you don't know this story at all, I can do a quick little, when people are like, oh, people who don't know what this is, they're like, what's it about? What is it about? You could say really half-assed answers, like it's sort of like a Beauty and the Beast story. Sort of. But it doesn't end happy. So you have a disfigured man who's pretending to be a ghost and he's extorting the Paris Opera House in the 1880s, somewhere in there. And he's already met, this has already happened, but he has fallen in love with one of the chorus girls and he wants to make her a star. He loves her voice. And so he's been coaching her. But since he's horribly disfigured, he's too scared to approach her, of course. So luckily for him, she's under the impression that her dead father is going to send her an angel of music to teach her to be a better singer. So he poses as that angel. So he wears a lot of monocles, this character. He's a mad genius. He's a great musician. He has a beautiful voice. He's an architect. Like he has this long laundry list that they talk about in the show. But he's also a ghost and he's also an angel. And sometimes he's kind of like a father figure to this young girl. Her name's Christine. But I think he also wants to, he's in love with her. So obviously he wants to marry her. It's a little muddy, but it's a love triangle because she does have a childhood sweetheart who enters the show pretty quickly in the beginning. So you have a three-way, it's one of those, he loves someone who loves someone else, and who can't relate to that? I think that's the first thing that I like about this story is, who can't relate to loving someone that doesn't love you back? That's very relatable. This is like very Victorian high melodrama, gothic romance. It's got a lot of that to it. So it's a lot like Dracula. It's a lot like Beauty and the Beast. It's kind of got that vibe, like look at this imagery, the original logo, which looks more like that. I don't know if you can see because there's a glare. The title Phantom of the Opera is like a shattered mirror. So you got mirrors, you got roses. So it's very heightened melodrama. And it came from the 80s. The 80s were all about big spectacle musicals. It was all big budget, all, people who are artists are all like, oh, that's just a bunch of fluff. They're not saying anything important. It's a bunch of dribble. But people were coming in droves. Okay. So just like how people hate on superhero movies now for cinema, they think there are some people who think superhero movies are ruining cinema. A lot of artists are like, oh, this like it's all flash and no substance kind of shows are ruining the art that is theater. I don't poo-poo on all that. There's something for everyone. So if you were a person who says, I don't like musicals, I'm like, well, it depends. What have you seen? What have you seen? There's a lot of different kind of musicals. There's really dark, edgy stuff. There's light, fluffy stuff. There's stuff like this where it's all about the budget. Like, you could argue that it's all about applauding the set changes more than the acting, but the music is so good. The music in this show is so good. It's so addicting. I first heard this music when I was 14, so that was like 1996, 7, depends. So somewhere in my 8th grade year, pretty sure it was 8th grade, I heard just the first few bars of the opening overture, the iconic theme, the Phantom's theme music, and I was hooked. Love this show. I heard that and I was like, give me more. I needed all the music. So I quickly went out to Sam Goody, for those of you who know what Sam Goody is. And I got the soundtrack and I listened to it like every day for like 2 years. And then when I got to high school, I did have the privilege. I don't live that, I'm like 4 hours away from New York City. So it's not that far. I could go up there and spend a day there and come back. And I've done that many times. In high school, I was both in drama club and in my choir, and both groups organized trips to New York City to see a show. And I was able to persuade both groups one time to make Phantom what we saw. We saw other things, like I've seen Chicago, I've seen Cabaret, I saw Ragtime. What else did I see? Oh, I saw Dracula the musical. Terrible. What else did I see? Miss Saigon, another one from this era, and Les Mis. A lot of these big budget musicals, they ran like for 20 years, no problem. They put butts in the seats. So why is this show so special? Why has this run longer than any other show currently? Like, Cats boasted that it was going to run forever, and it almost did. It ran over 20 years, and people were starting to think, oh, Cats is not going away, and then it went away. I'm sure Phantom will close at some point, but there's something about it. So let's dissect this a little bit, So I'm watching it, and I know the words so well, so I'm kind of mouthing along, and I even know the alternate versions. Like, there's a song early in the show called Think of Me. The lyrics are never the same. Like, every time I see it, the lyrics are a little bit different depending on who's singing it. I don't know how much of that is like, is it this version's way? Because I've seen it on tour more than I've seen it on Broadway proper. Do the actors say like, oh, there are 3 ways you can sing this one section, so you get to pick? Maybe it's to help keep it from getting stale. I don't know. It's funny how with this particular musical, there's a couple areas where, especially Think of Me, where the lyrics change a little bit, and I'd like to know why. So if any of you actually work on Broadway or work on shows, I've worked on shows, but not at this level. I've done stuff that's a couple tiers down from that. I would love to know if there's a reason for that specifically. So it's never the same way twice. Same thing with how the characters are played. So there's 3 main characters, but there's other characters too. In this particular, the current production, which was, fall, winter of, 2021, the Phantom is played by Ben Crawford. He did a pretty good job. The love interest, that's his rival, his name's Raoul. He is played by John Riddle. And because I went to a matinee, I never see the official version of Christine. Christine is a very, very difficult role to play. It's so difficult that for the matinees and for one other night of the week, which they've already picked because they always list it in the program. So Broadway shows do 8 shows a week. So for 3 of these shows, Christine is played by someone else just to give the other girl a break. I saw, and it looks like it's pronounced Emily or Emily. I'm going to put her name in text here because I don't want to butcher her last name. I saw her, so she was the alternate, and she's actually Broadway's first Black Christine. So that's a milestone. I've seen the tours a lot, but I haven't seen all of them. So I don't know if she's the first Black Christine ever, but she's on Broadway. That's pretty impressive. Other notable characters, there, of course, is a established diva, prima donna for the opera company. Her name's Carlotta. This Carlotta was really, really good. Let's see. Her name was Raquel Groen. And she has, like, I don't know if it's her husband. I think it's her husband. They don't ever come out and say it. They're at least involved. Piangi, let's see, that was played by Carlton Moe. And then the opera owners, the owners, right? Because it depends on who you believe. let's see. Um, Bradley Dean played Monsieur Andre, and Monsieur Firmin was played by Marie Johnson. So they were very good. And also the other characters that are notable is the ballet. The head of the ballet company is Madame Giry. This Madame Giry, they do a who's who in programs. She actually played Christine when she was younger in Australia, but the show is like 35 years old. So she's aged into this role. Where is she? Oh, here she is. Oh, I'm sorry. I read the wrong line. Monsieur Firmin was played by Craig Bennett. Madame Giry was played by Marie Johnson. And she has a daughter who's a ballerina. Her name's Meg Giry. This is played by Sarah Etsy. Those are the characters that are noteworthy. There is an ensemble. The girl who played Meg was very, very good too. And one of the questions I had about when Broadway shows opened is how many of the cast members who was playing at the time that Broadway closed have come back. Almost the entire Phantom cast has returned. Their Meg is new. I think one other person is new, but everybody else is from the show when it closed back in March of 2020. That warms my heart. I wouldn't want anyone to lose precious time because some people have. I know that there were shows that they were in their preview week, or they were about to be, or they only got to perform their show once and then it closed. Like, I think that happened to Mean Girls, the musical, I think. Don't quote me on that. But stories like that happen. So it's nice to know that also other groups were able to be restored. So I'm sure October 22nd, the night they opened, was very emotional. And I'm so glad that they had 2 months to get ready before I went and saw them. So this is my Christmas present. I mean, to myself, but my family kind of helped pay for it. So I was very happy that I saw this when I was a high schooler. And I have a 11-year-old daughter. And it was so nice to take her to the same theater, the historic, it's been there since 1998, Majestic Theater, and watch it with her again, and my husband as well. My husband's seen it with me, but we've never seen it on Broadway. We've seen it on tour. So it was wonderful. Now, I love this show more than anything. I love the music. I love the tragic love story. But I'm not so blinded by my love that I can't recognize that the show does have flaws. It is not a perfect show. So if you're new to Phantom, if you don't know anything about Phantom, I don't want to send you in with this false sense of like, it's the perfect show. That's why it's been running for almost 40 years. No, it has things, if you don't mind me spoiling it for you, but I like to think that it's such part of the zeitgeist now that you at least know it by osmosis, right? One of the big moments in the show is a chandelier falls. The Phantom is, he's, whenever he throws a tantrum, because he's kind of a toddler, he plays tricks or he does horrible, awful deeds to the opera company. So during a performance, he's really mad about something and he makes a chandelier fall during the show to ruin the show. So they do have a real chandelier that they hoist up during the overture to get you ready. And then it comes crashing down to end Act 1. It does, I mean, it's a controlled fall, but it does kind of fall like, oh no, here it comes. But they play it like it's coming really fast. And I know it can't come too fast because you got to control the speed at which it comes down because it's like it does weigh like 2 tons. I was in the rear balcony, so I was level with it. So I got to see it fall this way. Like I've been in the orchestra pit where it's over you. It's more impressive when it's over your head because, the angle is just different. But from when you're looking straight at it and you see it go, it's like, I think that's where some of the criticism comes from. A lot of people are like, oh, we're supposed to applaud this amazing chandelier moment. Like that's the big moment. It's a moment. It is not like the only thing that matters in this show. But that's a little cringe. And also the book, which if you're new to theater, that's just their word for script. The book has flaws. I'm not going to lie. There's certain lines of dialogue that they'll say that don't make sense because in the next scene, they'll kind of undo what they just did. Like, so the Phantom is going to force them to do his opera because he's also a composer. Of course he is. He's like a jack of all trades. So they're all in the manager's office discussing what to do. What do we do about this Phantom? How are we going to get rid of him? And they're like, oh, since he loves Christine, we'll just put her on stage as bait and he'll come out. And she's all like, oh, I can't do it. And the very next scene, she's rehearsing it. I don't know why they write her lines to do that. And they don't write why she suddenly is doing it. Like, why do we suddenly transition to that? So that's just one example. I'm not going to name all of them. I'm just saying that I'm not so blinded by my love for Phantom that I can't see the little cracks that are there. I think, just to be honest, this is a show that just has so much working for it that it's hard to say, oh, this is why it should have closed years ago. It should have only ran for like 5 years and then been done with it. Why is this show still a thing? I mean, I think people have tried to dive into this. You know, there's a lot of quotes I can give you. It has made more money than most movies have. Like, because it's run for so long, endless tickets every day, it's made more than Transformers and it's made more than Avatar. Like, it's ridiculous. It's been adapted into every major language. It's a global phenomenon. It's not like it's just a big deal in the West End or a big deal West End and Broadway. It had a brief Vegas stint for a while. I mean, there's lots and lots of facts I can give you. What I'm really happy about with a show like Phantom, it's not the only one who does it. Lion King is up there too. Shows like this, a lot of people think, oh, look at them just milking the cow. All that money translated into jobs. I care very much about this field. I do not want theater as a field to go away. I mean, it never will. I mean, I've studied my history. If the Middle Ages didn't kill theater, then COVID is not going to actually kill theater. But I do worry about people being able to make money doing this. You know, that starving artist thing, that's a real thing. And not just the actors. I'm talking about everybody. Stage managers and costume people and, you know, light board operators. You know, there's so many people involved. And I want them to be able to do what they love and make at least somewhat decent money. So when you hear all the numbers that come out of a show like Phantom, what I think about is all those people getting paid. So that's a beautiful thing. But yeah, why is this show so great? I mean, some people think it's actually what the context of the show is. It's all about repressed sexualism. Like, oh, the secret to making Phantom a success is to make him sexy. Some people do find the Phantom very sexy. This is kind of like treading the whole Twilight, 50 Shades kind of before those things were around, because this is from the 80s. I don't know if I agree with it. I think I see what people mean by that, because it's like, we're not going to just make the Phantom sexy. We're going to make Christine kind of into that. She is kind of turned on by him. There's a scene where the Phantom is, I guess he's seducing her. It's a very famous song. It's called Music of the Night, excuse me. Now this Ben Crawford, who was in this show, he definitely played up the sex angle. The Phantom does a lot of rubbing himself. Like, there's a lot of, let me rub myself and let me pull you toward me with my hand. Like, he was rubbing himself a lot. And I'm like, wow, look at him play up the sex part. You know, I've seen lots of famous Phantoms. Hugh Perrineau is much more like, that's one way to play the Phantom, is straight up evil. Another way is to play like he's a loose cannon, like you don't know what he's going to do next. So very eccentric, very like, whoa, that guy's nuts. So you can play him kind of nutty, or you can kind of play him very vulnerable, like a little hurt puppy, like what was his name? John Owen Jones, I believe. Yeah, he was another famous Phantom, and he did the whole like, oh, no one ever loved me. Oh, I'm a sad little puppy. I've seen Phantom like 20 times, and I can't believe the gamut that I've seen him betrayed. Just him, the character. I guess I'd like the vulnerable one, because here's a person that was born disfigured and was never shown love. And now that he has fallen in love with someone that they haven't shown love back, he's just so hungry for it that he gets desperate and he makes really bad choices to try to obtain that love. Who doesn't relate to being desperate like that, you know? I think just the hurt, vulnerable angle is what I like. Now, this Ben Crawford, he did a good job. The Phantom character is not on stage very long. He's actually very, like, the show is like 2 hours and like 40 minutes, and he's only on stage for like 30 minutes. Like, they use him sparingly, and that's where the book is a good thing. A little goes a long way, so you don't need a whole lot of Phantom to get your Phantom on. Christine, on the other hand, this is what I mean. One of the hardest roles on stage ever. It's an honor to play her if a girl gets to play her, but it's a lot of work because they have to dance and they have to be a soprano and they have to hit really high notes. And they're on stage almost the entire time. She doesn't get too many breaks. She gets breaks because she has a lot of costume changes as well. She's one of those kind of characters, they like to do that to their leading ladies. How many costumes can we get into this show? Challenge accepted. It's not an easy role, hence why there's an alternate Christine and a couple understudies. It doesn't take much to hurt yourself playing the role. In terms of interpretations of Christine, I feel like all the Christines I've seen have been about the same. They tend to have that wispy, willowy, like, a lot of feminists or feminist-minded people don't like Christine because she doesn't have a lot of agency in her story. It's either she's doing what the Phantom wants her to do, she's doing what her father wants her to do, she's doing what Raoul, her lover, or her soon-to-be husband, to be, that she hopes for. Everyone's moving around, but this is Paris in the 1880s. Of course, she's not really her own woman. She's not an aristocrat, so she doesn't have a lot of options. Of course, she doesn't have a lot of agency, but she does some very important things, especially at the end, where I think that kind of makes it all okay. So I don't think I've seen as much range, but maybe I just couldn't see it. I'm not an expert at this. Like, I'm not a director. I would love to understand theater on another level that a director has to understand in order to do a project well. I'm not quite there yet. The other thing I want to talk about is John Riddle, who plays Raoul. His Raoul was very weird. Now, a lot of people don't like Raoul. When I first fell in love with this story, I didn't like him either because I'm like, oh, well, he's pretty and he's rich. He can have any girl he wants. He doesn't have a hard life. So I just didn't like him from the angle of, well, he doesn't need Christine. Just because they were childhood friends doesn't mean he doesn't have options, right? He could probably find love in a couple places, whereas the Phantom is very limited, and he appreciates Christine for her musical ability. I'm sure he thinks she's lovely too, but he never talks about that. But I'm sure he thinks that. But I don't hate the actors who play Raoul, and I've seen lots of Raouls, but they all seem to be kind of the same too. But this guy, he sang really weird. It was like he would be like, "Oh, I gotta tell you something." Da, 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 da. Like it's like I missed every like fourth word. I'm like, are you purposely going up and then whispering and then going up again and then so his style of singing, because this is a show where they sing pretty much the entire time. There's very little dialogue. So it's not just a musical. A traditional musical is like a play, is like a movie where you have actors and they're acting, they're talking, but then they have like 6 or 7 really distinct songs. Like, oh, we got to have the I just met the love of my life and I'm falling in love song. I have to have the villain song, and then we have to have the big chorus number, But in between all that is just regular scenes. Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, because Andrew Lloyd Webber is the person who composed this musical, are all operettas where they sing like the whole time. It's not for everyone. So you got the big spectacle, you got the singing the whole time. It's a fluffy kind of broken story. There's a lot to hate with this show, but it's still running for a reason. So obviously the lovers outweigh the haters. For me personally, it's not just the tragic love story and the music. The music's so good. It's such an ear. I can't help it. If I play it, I will play it for days and weeks, no problem. The other thing, because I'm a backstage person myself, I love the original costume and set design. Now, because I love all things Phantom, and other Phantom fans, I'm not alone here. If you fall in love with one version of Phantom, especially this one, because it's the most well-known, you tend to seek out the other ones. It was a book first, so I have read the original novel. It's more of a mystery, serialized, whodunit It's not really a romance novel at all. So I've read the original book. I've seen the classic silent film by Lon Chaney. That was an important moment in movie cinema history. And there's been a lot of other movie adaptations. I've seen most of them. I've seen other stage shows, either that came out around the same time as Phantom, which was really bad timing because this Phantom was just so popular that the other ones just got blown out of the water. But a couple came out after. I've seen those. There was a Phantom of the Opera on ice. There was an animated movie made. It's been made into comic books and all this stuff. It's just one of those IPs that has been saturated everywhere. So because I'm a sucker for anything that has anything even kind of to do with this story, I've seen everything. And it came on, so this show was on tour. This was in 2016, but I saw this version. Now it's Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's the same musical, but they even boasted, welcome to the new version, meaning they changed the costumes and the scenery. And at first I thought, well, it can't be so different that you don't recognize it. I don't know if this is still touring. I don't know if this was like a special, it's been, let's see, 2016. That would be the third. I don't know if this was like a 30th anniversary only situation. I haven't seen, if you see this poster, don't go see this version. You want the classic, just the mask. So this, not this, love this, screw this version. I hate this version because how dare you change the scenery and the costumes? And what I mean by that is because every time a show is revived, it's a group saying this is our take on it. That's what theater is all about. But because the show has not officially closed yet, hasn't actually gone away, like it has to like not play for like a decade and then be revived. Because then it'd be like any other show. This show is just so different because it hasn't done that yet. Now, it's not the only one. Again, Lion King is like this. There are others. Those are just the two that come to mind. Hamilton's like this. Hamilton's new enough where it would have to close, go away for a while, and then you would have to revive it to change some things. In this revival, the big opening number for Act 2 is called Masquerade. It's one of my favorite in terms of when you look at the stage, what you're looking at. I love Masquerade. There's this giant staircase, and it's filled with people in these amazing, elaborate, really detailed costumes. In this version, there's no staircase. They just have like a little hall of mirrors, and everyone's like in just classic ball gowns. It's so boring by comparison. And I care because that's an iconic moment. Everyone knows the cast on the stairs. Like that's a still for, like, just Google Phantom of the Opera on stage, like an image search. One of the images that'll come up is the entire cast in those masquerade costumes on a staircase. It's an iconic moment, you can't take that away. And they also take away the really big iconic moment, which is the Phantom and Christine in the gondola crossing the lake, and candles come out of the stage or from the sides of the stage. It depends on what stage they're on. They should come out of the floor, but if it's a touring show and they don't have trap doors, then they'll just slide in. Point is, candles appear from somewhere else. They did this weird round wall thing where little spokes would come out and they would descend on them because they're going down below the opera house. Visually, it was just so boring. And the show I saw here, the Phantom was played by a black man, which is fine. But Christine was played by a white woman. And when they go to his lair, the set in this version, there's a giant bed and the Phantom throws her on the bed. I just think visually that's bad imagery. You don't want it to look like, we don't want to perpetuate the myth of black men attacking white women. It had that kind of look to it. It shouldn't matter that he's black. It shouldn't matter that she's white. I just have to say that imagery of that bed and they're down in cellar and she's supposed to be a young girl, like under age or just of age. It looked really bad. I don't know why they put a giant bed on set. Maybe he's seducing her, but they don't actually go to bed together. It's implied, but it's on the line so that if you don't interpret it that way, you don't necessarily have to. It's open enough where you're like, oh no, he's just trying to say, I want you to love me for me. Ignore my bad looks, but she doesn't know that he looks bad. But I think he's trying to win her over first so that if she were to find out, because she would find out if she's with him long enough, maybe she can see past his deformity. It's just not good to have him. Now, he didn't do it in that scene. We're in the lair 2 times, but the second time he kidnaps her and brings her down there and he's mad at her. That's the scene where he threw her on the bed. It looked so bad. So his lair looked terrible. And not all the sets are terrible. Her dressing room is a big scene. They changed that too, but it still had a big mirror because that's where and that's the first time we see him, and that's where she leaves to join him. That was fine. There's really 2 really good scenes in the manager's office. They made it actually like an office, where is in the original version, there's just like a desk and it's all, the background's all black. The original show has a lot of fabric that's swagging down. So even though it's a big spectacle show, their scenery just kind of simulated where they were. There wasn't a whole lot of sets. That's how they were able to change the set so many times, because they're like, right, we're just going to give you a bit of something to simulate where you are. Because in theater, you don't need to give audiences everything, just enough so they go, right, we're somewhere different. Oh, we got a little bit of this. We're over here. That's fine. So I saw this version. I hate that I saw this version. I hate this version. I saw this in 2016. That's the last time I saw Phantom. So the reason that we went to Broadway, I was like, okay, if this is the only thing that's touring right now, because every time I would see on tour, I would see this poster and I'm like, skip. I'm like, that can't be the last time I see Phantom. I don't need to see Phantom 20 more times. I mean, I want to. I'm like, I have to see the original with the original costumes and the original sets, because that's what I'm used to. Yeah. Also, Masquerade, the Phantom has a really cool Masquerade costume, and they changed it and it looks so bad. Do not mess with perfection. It's still running. You don't have to change it to get people to come. People will come because it says Phantom, okay? So don't go see this if you haven't seen Phantom at all. If you see this poster, run away. Do not go see that. All right, so that's my tirade. The other thing is, in 2004, they did finally make it into a movie. And I was a little sad because I thought, oh no, once they make a musical into a movie, people will say, I don't need to go see it on stage. I'll just watch the movie. Well, the movie bombed. It was really badly directed because, of course, Andrew Lloyd Webber had sole rights to his work, which is fair. It's his work. I get it. But he was so afraid to trust the studio with it, he decided to put his own money into it, and he hired Joel Schumacher. He hired Joel Schumacher. You know, the guy who ruined Batman. Remember how we went a decade with no Batman? His fault. So he has ruined Batman and Phantom. My 2 loves. I love Batman and I love Phantom. There's a trend here. I like dark and mysterious men who are kind of broken. Yeah, that's a good comparison. The Phantom of the Opera and Batman, very similar in a lot of ways. And both ruined by somebody. Terrible direction, very bad casting, and the camera work and the editing. Oh my God, so bad. So luckily, because that movie is so awful, people are like, no, let's go see it on stage because it's better. Now, the musical is always better. Well, I like a couple of the movies more than the stage shows, but very few. So yes, there is a movie adaptation of the musical, but it's not very good. I mean, if you think Phantom is just fine, it's fine. I don't recommend it though, unless you need a hate watch. If you do a bad movie night kind of thing, you can watch the 2004 adaptation of this story because it gives you a lot to work with. So there's that. I've seen most versions. If it's available at all, even through YouTube or whatever, I've tried to read and watch every version. There's just something so compelling about this story, I mean, the Phantom is not a good person. He kills people. He kidnaps a girl. He actually does very bad things. But I guess it's not that we're trying to excuse it, but you're trying to understand that hurt people, right? If you're hurt, you're going to hurt. So I think it's a good examination of maybe we should be kinder to each other. Maybe if someone had just been affectionate to him, he would have made different choices, and he could have had maybe not a great life, but he at least could have had a calm, quiet, normal, unassuming life. That's not so bad, compared to how he lived, Now, in some versions of the story, it's implied that he helped build the opera, and that's why he thinks of it as his playground. They don't really come out and say that in this particular version. They should, because the reason he's able to be a ghost is there's, hidden passages and trap doors. It's almost like a Clue, like a mystery game. So when you explain the whole he helped build the opera, because he built those elements in there, it makes sense why they're there. If he didn't build it, why would they be there? So yeah, there's some plot points that are a little like, what? But I don't know. I've never wanted to see a show again. Like, I love a lot of shows. I've seen Chicago, but if I never see it again, I don't care. I've seen Wicked. If I don't see it again, that's okay. Like, I don't hate them. I just don't have to see them again. I'll see them if someone says, oh, I have an extra ticket, or, hey, they're coming really, really close to me and the ticket prices are reasonable. But Phantom, for some reason, even though I've seen it a bajillion times, all I'm thinking when I do think about it is, when can I go see it again? And I'm trying to tell myself, I'm like, okay, don't make your family go anymore. My husband has now seen it 3 times. Now, this is one of the 3 though, if you want to count that, which I don't. He says he'll go with me again. He loves me. He's such a good man. I'm not going to make him though. I'm like, no, we should branch out and see other things. And I like seeing other things. I love theater in general, but I don't know why. I'm really trying to figure out why I love this more than anything else. It can't just be, well, they made him sexy, so you're sexually charged by it. I'm like, it's funny. I never thought about that. Now, I was a child when I heard it the first time. And at first I thought, whoa, what a great, score. And then I got a little bit older. When you're a teen and you're awkward and you want to date, but you're too awkward. And of course you try to make something happen with people, but because you're going through your ugly duckling phase, it doesn't work out so much for you. You can't help but relate to the guy. You're like, oh, it's so sad. But all the characters are great in some ways. Like Carlotta, they really like to make her out like she's this evil because she's the prima donna. They're like, oh, but she's a diva. She has every right to be upset. The Phantom, she's just an obstacle that he needs to get out of the way so that Christine can be a star. So he's terrorizing her. So of course she's upset and making demands because he's mistreating her, So she's coming from a place of, I've been hurt. So lately my feelings toward her have changed. I'm like, you know what? She's not such a bad person. You got to think about it from her perspective. Okay. Anyway. I love how the show looks. The original, not that crap version. I love how it sounds. Oh, something about it. And I'm not alone because it has run longer than any other show. That is so weird. I can't believe that, I didn't know that. When I fell in love with it, it was only like 15 years old. So that was cool, but because only a couple shows had done that at that time. But more and more shows, Chicago has been on Broadway for like 25 years. Lion King has been on Broadway for probably 22. I'm trying to think when Lion King came out on Broadway. Those are like the big 3, Phantom, Lion King, and Chicago on Broadway. I think those 3 are safe for a little while. But it's amazing how all these other shows that at the time everyone's like, oh my God, this is so great. People love the producers. People loved Mamma Mia, people loved Hairspray, but they're all gone. I don't know if it's because they're comedies. Maybe it's because they're comedies. Maybe it's something. Dramas just have more staying power because a joke can get really tiring. You can only laugh so many times before you go, okay, it's not really funny anymore because I've heard it. Now, Phantom has jokes in it, it depends on how the cast wants to play it. There's certain moments that they could play it like a joke or they could play it straight. And I gotta say, the performance I saw, and this was just a couple days ago here on Broadway, Carlotta has a couple jokes and she told a few of them and they did not land. I don't know if it was how she did it or if the audience just didn't get it. Because again, they're singing almost the entire time. So if you're not really listening, you can miss a lot of stuff. Took my daughter, she liked the music, but I know she didn't she didn't follow all of it because she was like, who are the king and queen in this? And I'm like, there's no king and queen. So I think it was a little over her head, but that's okay. So it has funny moments, but you can totally drop them and just play it all seriousness. So I don't know, maybe it's because it's a drama. You know, I know there's a lot of Phantom fans out there. I've watched a lot of YouTube channels. So if you have a YouTube channel where you dedicate a whole section or a series, or if your whole channel is about Phantom, I've probably watched you. So if we want to start a dialogue, why do you think Phantom is still here? You know, what is so great about it? Because it does have flaws. If you're a really good fan, you have to recognize like, yeah, this part's not so great. This other thing, oh yeah, that's not so great. But maybe it's because what it gets right, it gets so right. So that we kind of forgive the flaws. Yeah, why don't you put in the comments? Why do you think Phantom's still here? What do you think is the allure? And if you're a Phantom hater, I think I understand why, but feel free to say, well, this is why Phantom is like the worst thing ever. I don't mind hearing why people think so, because I think I can see it. There are certain things that I look at going, wow, here's the thing that holds the story back, or here's the thing that holds this exact production back, you know, and I'm talking about just this show, not really Phantom, the concept, because again, it's in so many different mediums that it's just so ubiquitous, right? So there's something compelling. Otherwise, people wouldn't make 5,000 versions of it. Something about it. Anyway, I love Phantom so much. I love it so much. I just had to share that I'm very happy that, at least not yet, COVID has not killed it. It's okay if this closes someday. I just don't want COVID to be the reason. I want it to just be like, the world has finally said, okay, everyone who cares about this has now seen it and we're done. So not yet, not today. Thank you for letting me see it at least one more time. And please support Broadway. If you are within reasonable distance and once you're vaccinated or once you feel safe, whatever, as soon as you're able, because it doesn't have to be right now. It's a scary time right now. Don't let Broadway die. You know, go support whatever show. There's like 40 some theaters on Broadway, so you have choices. Please go support. So this is also a PSA of like, don't let theater die. I don't think it'll die, but it's because you and me are going to help save it, right? Anyway, I just wanted to say that today. So yay, love Phantom. Love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.